Hello everyone, this video is presented by Group 13 and all group members are Renata, Xiao and Johnson. We are going to introduce AUD against USD. Before we start our presentation, we need to see financial market and forward exchange rate cannot be predicted accurately. So what do we here is predicting the rates based on the data we have. The first, we can see the exchange rate is flowing up and down. It's close to 0 0.8. Our group will analyze and predict the exchange rate by technology analysis and fundamental analysis of full indicators. From long-term charts are followed. It is expected to the 0 0.9 level on a move here. It is obviously a very long-term move and not something that we will see anytime soon. If it is above the 0 0.8 level, this is a buy-only market for the near future, thereby making it one of easier trades out there. Given enough time, it would be expected to continue to see strength in the Australian dollar, especially considering the other markets like copper. It is very bullish this year. It should continue to propel demand for Australian dollars. If the Asian economies can pick up a little more, that should help as well as Australia's other supply for Asian growth when it comes to raw materials. So now my friend will continue to analyze fundamental aspects into four indicators: relative inflation rates, interest rates, and government intervention, and exchange rate expectation.
This is Chang Honeo. I'm going to introduce how inflation rate and interest rate affect the exchange rate of AUD against USD. This is data from Reserve Bank of Australia and Fluid Economic. In March 2017, US has the higher inflation rate than Australia, which is 2.1. But in June, the inflation of US was lower than Australia. It's 1.6 against 1.9. Let's go back to the exchange rate table. We can find during this period, the exchange rate of AUD against USD was declining. So that means inflation rate has some effects on the exchange rate. Okay, then the trend of US is declining, but Australia's inflation is increasing. By analysis the data, we predict US will have lower inflation than Australia in next 6 months. Refer to the theory, which the country with lower inflation has higher value of currencies. So we predict the USD will appreciate and the USD will depreciate. So which is in this indicator, we can predict the AUD against the USD will depreciate in the next 6 months. Let's move on to the next part. Okay, let's look at the table here. It is the data of Australia interest rate from the Reserve Bank of Australia from September 2016. The interest rate is remained at 1.5. This is determined by the policy which made by Reserve Bank of Australia. The reason we will mention in the next indicator. Under this interest rate, Australian market can't attach more capital and investment. So we predict the value of AUD will remain at the same level. This is the data from Fluid Economics. Starts from September 2016. The interest rate of US was rising quickly from 1.67 and reached the peak at March 2017. From June 2017, the trend of interest rate is uptrend, so we predict the interest rate will keep rising in the next months. Better yet, the US interest rate is always higher than Australia all the time. So US can attach more capital and investment than Australia. That led to appreciate in USD against AUD. So we predict the US AUD against the USD will depreciate in the next 6 months.
Hello everyone, I'm Renata and I will introduce how exchange rate changes with the government intervention. Now let's see the US and I list the 2 points of the US government intervention. First of all is the President Trump is juggling down the dollar because his economic reforms looks increasing unlikely with what he said promised to make America great again. In which case that America's GDP growth would remain middling. In terms, this will heavily weaken the value of the dollars. The second point is the President Donald Trump is weaken the dollars too, because he's publicly said that he thinks the US dollar is too strong. To be specific, that Mr. Trump said that our companies cannot compete with China now because our currency is too strong and it's killing us. Uh, that's why it shows the president is weaken the U.S. dollar now. Next, I will introduce the Australia's government intervention. Based on the data we collect, the Australian dollar lifted 4.1% in July, trending about 18 US cents for the first time in 2 years. Because of the weaker US dollar encouraging Australian economic conditions and farmers' error oil price. And there are 3 points that influence Australia's government intervention. First of all is the lower global growth. Whenever global growth forecasts are being revised down, AUD against the USD tends to come under downward pressure, which means the Australian dollar loses the value relative to the US dollars. And the second point is the commodity price, or we can say terms of trade. Australia relies heavily on trade for its economic well-being. Commodity, the commodities, including arrow oil and coal, are some of Australia's biggest export products. A significant fall in the price of commodities can contribute to a sharp decline in Australia's terms of trade. And as slowing demand causes the price of Australian resources to fall, it also reduces the need of Australian dollars, the currency used to buy them. And the third point is Australian interest rate. The interest rate have historically been much higher in Australia than the US for a long time now, but the momentum has been shifting. So the appearing of buy Australian dollars to benefit from the interest you can earn on them relative to other currencies has warmed off somewhat, and the money has been moving back into the US in anticipation of higher rent there. Next point is we will analyze the exchange rate will be influenced by the exchange rate expectation. As for the AUD's view, the RBA bulletin could be trigger Australian dollars volatility if the outlook is particularly positive or negative, and the RBA will trying to weaken the Australian dollars. For the USD dollars, and the US dollars on the Trump's UN speech because his speech, which was very typically caustic and controversial. And here is our group's conclusion. After compare all indicators, the exchange rate of AUD against USD would be increasing. And here is our list. Thank you for watching.